You pre-record, do you?
Yeah. It's pre-record. It's going out live Friday night at 6 o'clock. It's just as 11 in the morning here. Okay. I'm now joined on the line by Tim Horan, a twice-winning Australian rugby player who won the World Cup in 1991 and also again won the World Cup in 1999. In 1999, he was voted Player of the Tournament, and he scored in all the matches leading up to the tournament, and himself was voted Player of the Tournament. Tim, if we can just start back, and I'm just looking at some of your own World Cup experiences in 1991 and again in South Africa in 1996 and in 1999 you won the World Cup, so 2 World Cup wins out of 3 tournaments. What are your memories about that, and why is it so much that the Southern Hemisphere teams in relation to Australia, New Zealand and South Africa have made the breakthrough while only England out of the Northern Hemisphere teams have been able to do so?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Nice to be on your program and from down under. And yes, some great memories playing in 3 World Cups, as you mentioned, and the 2 successful ones we were a part of, 1991 and 1999. We were both, or most of our pool games were in Ireland, and we were based in Ireland. In 91, we were staying at the Westbury Hotel in Dublin, and then Port Marnock in 99. We had great relationships with all the people and supporters around Ireland, and it was really like our second home. So as we got through the tournament, had some great matches, and in 99 obviously we played Ireland at Lansdowne Road, and also in 1991 we had Ireland at Lansdowne Road. So we had a great experience of playing in the World Cups. But I think moving forward now, I think the Southern Hemisphere rugby is certainly high class level of rugby, but I think the Northern Hemisphere has really started to improve the last 4 or 5 years. I think the Six Nations has certainly gone to another level. I think with the brand of rugby that both Southern and Northern Hemisphere are playing now, it's more of an open brand of rugby rather than kicking for goals all the time.
Yeah, and Tim, if we look ahead to the internationals coming up between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere teams, and Saturday the 5th of November, 2 big ties starting off, Wales against Australia and New Zealand against Ireland. And we look at maybe the Australia, the knowledge of Michael Cheika would have there working as Leinster head coach, and he would know most of the players from playing in the Heineken Cup and Munster Leagues, and especially as well his knowledge of the Welsh players. And in Australia you have some real top quality players in Drew Mitchell, Matt Giteau, Will Guinea, and then Michael Hooper and David Pocock. And you're coming against a Wales side, against Warren Gatland, who probably they didn't have their best Six Nations, and since the Rugby World Cup maybe Wales and Ireland have been overtaken by England as such. So are you expecting a real tough game from Wales?
I think any game you play in the Northern Hemisphere, especially the 5 nations, even Italy as well, you expect really tough games, very hard to win, at Millennium Stadium, very hard to win at, we still like to call it, Lansdowne Road. And I think the atmosphere and the pressure that the home team gets put under, they feel they really have to perform. And I was really impressed with Ireland through the World Cup. I thought they had a wonderful tournament. Wales just as good. But I think what happens after the Rugby World Cup is that sides tend to try and rebuild and really struggle to capture that form and the energy that they had through the World Cup. So the big challenge is a year after the World Cup, how can you get back to that level? And I think some sides tend to take a couple of breaths and regroup and go again. I think I like the way that Ireland are looking going into the autumn internationals. I like the way I think Warren Gatland will be picking some younger players in Wales, and we'll really try and upset Australia. I know that Ireland will try and upset the All Blacks. The All Blacks are a wonderful team, and but both Australia and New Zealand, the All Blacks will be coming off very long seasons in Australia and New Zealand, and that's the best time to play it when they're been through a 10-month period and haven't had a lot of break.
Yeah, and Tim, we all know here in Ireland we're a bit in a rebuilding phase. Great Irish rugby players like Brian O'Driscoll and Paul O'Connell, great leaders in that team, have now departed for Ireland, and it's a team maybe we're in transition. We're looking for new leaders to come through the fore. Replacing the likes of Paul O'Connell and Brian O'Driscoll is very, very hard. Even those players would be a loss to even the likes of Australia. But going forward, Ireland, and we play Australia. We have a good record against Australia, but Australia have some real exciting players behind the back line in Drew Mitchell and Ashley Cooper and Mash Giteau and Will Guinea, and how important is the forwards to give the platform for these boys to express themselves?
Well, Jim, I don't think you'll see a lot of those players you just mentioned. Drew Mitchell has now only today gone back to France, so he's out of the Australian squad at the moment. So Drew Mitchell gone back to France. Matt Giteau has gone back to France, obviously injured. Adam Ashley Cooper's gone back to Bordeaux to France as well. So they may be included at the end of season 2. But I think what Michael Checker's looking to do now is to really get some younger players into the Wallaby team. And he's picked a couple of young wingers. You'll see some Fijian wingers that you probably would never heard of in the end of season 2 of the Autumn Internationals, who will play in some test matches, certainly midweek games. And this guy called Sefa Nayavalu, who's a Fijian, and then a guy called Korobeti, who is actually playing at the moment for the Melbourne Storm in the National Rugby League Championship here in Australia. And he's coming across, and it looks like he will go on the Wallaby tour as well. So Michael Checker, I think now Jim has probably realised that the players that are playing offshore, whilst they're really good players and been great ambassadors for the game and wonderful team players, that they are ageing, they are sort of well into their 30s, and he needs to look towards the future.
Yeah, and Tim, if we look at maybe England are coming off a Grand Slam win and they're going into play the Southern Hemisphere in great confidence, and they're under a coach there that you well know in Eddie Jones, and this is an England team after a disastrous World Cup when they didn't get out of their group, and it led to change, and the change has really come thick and fast for England. They were unbeaten through the Six Nations and very, very impressive, and they come here on the back of good results as well. So are England really the team that can really put it up to the Southern Hemisphere teams the most?
Yeah, certainly, Jim. I think when you look at how well England played against Australia, they had a very good pattern of play. They had a great game plan. They had a game plan. I think Michael Check would probably agree he was out-coached by Eddie Jones. And, Michael Checker didn't do a bad job. It's just Eddie Jones had more time to structure a game plan and his players. I think they only had about 36 or 37% of the ball in 3 test matches, England. So defensively they were outstanding, and certainly it'd be great, wouldn't it, to see England play the All Blacks at Twickenham in the Autumn Internationals, but they're not playing All Blacks until 2018, I think. So it's a long time away for England, the best team in the Northern Hemisphere, to play the best team in the Southern Hemisphere at the moment. So, but we'll get a fair gauge on how England and the other teams are going when you play against South Africa and play against Australia, and see where they're at, because it's a pretty good competition at the moment.
Yeah, and you speak about South Africa, and we all know that South Africa really took their time to find their gears in the World Cup, but when they came through, they gave New Zealand an almighty battle in that Rugby World Cup semi-final, and they really have a big, powerful pack in with the likes of Elizabeth and Francois Lowe, and then they've really talented players in Creel and Habana and Goosen. And are South Africa still up there with the likes of New Zealand or Australia, or is there a bit of a gap just below New Zealand and Australia compared to South Africa?
I think at the moment South Africa, they do struggle a bit when they tour, but I think you'll see the real South African team in a couple of weeks' time when they take on the Wallabies at Pretoria. Very hard to beat at home, at altitude in Pretoria more so. But I think they've got a really good young team. They're just missing some real strong leadership. John Smith, when you look at those sort of leadership players, Victor Matfield, Skolkberger, those sort of players aren't there to really drive this team on. But a good young team coming through. Jesse Creel, the outside centre, wonderful talent. He is only 23, I think 24 at the moment. So they've got a little bit of time to rebuild, but they're still a world-class team. They're still in the top 4 in world rugby.
Yeah, and Tim, finally, if we look at there maybe at New Zealand, and many people would say with Richie McCaw now and Dan Carter gone from the New Zealand fold, and they still have players like Drag and Savai, but maybe a bit of that leadership might be gone in New Zealand. They might find time to replace those characters and those leaders on the field. And is there a chance that maybe if this is a time to play New Zealand in the Winter Internationals, it's a time maybe for Ireland, who face New Zealand twice, that they could catch them?
Potentially, but when you talk to a lot of the New Zealand commentators, they say that the All Blacks are in a rebuilding phase. So I'm not sure what would happen when they hit their strengths, but You mentioned the likes of no Richie McCaw, no Dan Carter, no Ma'a Nonu, no Conrad Smith, no Kevin Mialamu. So you take all those players out of their experience. They're all over 100 caps. You would think, but their leadership would suffer. But certainly, Kieran Reid does an enormous job for the All Blacks. I rate him highly as a person, but also as a rugby player. And there's no good time and no easy time to play the All Blacks. They will be very pumped up for their tour. They've got a great culture and a lot of pride in the All Black jersey. So, but if any team can do it in the Northern Hemisphere, England aren't playing them for a few years. I think Ireland is the team that can really upset them, get in their faces, and I think they've got probably the best two players in the world at the moment in Ben Smith at fullback and Aaron Smith at halfback. But if you sort of settle at Aaron Smith at halfback, that's where you can try and beat the All Blacks. But it's a tough order. But any team in the world can do it. It's the Irish team because they can really play up in your faces and play some direct rugby. And I can't wait to see the matches in November.
And last question there, Tim. Finally, was probably regarded as one of the best world's centres yourself. How do you rate the career of many deemed Ireland's best rugby player, Brian O'Driscoll? What would you think of Brian O'Driscoll as a rugby player? Is he up there as one of the greats?
Well, certainly when you look at, I look at individuals themselves off the field first and how they handle themselves off the field. And Brian is a class act. He's a wonderful person off the field, and then when you look at him on the field and what he's achieved and achieved it over a long period of time, not just over 2 years, but over 10, 12, 13 years consistently at club level, at national level as well, and also at the British and Irish Lions. So, wonderful guy, and I'm looking forward to, I'll be at the Wallabies versus Ireland in Dublin. I think it's about the 26th of November. I'll be over there watching the test match and hopefully catching up with Brian for a couple of quiet pints of Guinness. If it's actually his turn to shout, he doesn't tend to shout that often, so hopefully he'll shout me a pint of Guinness in Dublin one day.
Tim, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best from RCB Radio Sport Ireland. Thank you.
Yeah, good on you, Jim. Nice to chat, and looking forward to seeing all the Irish supporters over there and in November against the Wallabies, and love touring to Ireland and looking forward to coming back to Dublin. I haven't been there for a few years, so look forward to catching up with everyone when we get there.
Cheers. Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Thanks, Jim.